Season of the Wish just came out, and understandably the sentiment towards Destiny 2 is still very negative. And Bungie has really not done very well to help that, because they decided to make a starter pack on Steam, which pretty much went as well as you thought it did. Like, I get Bungie is trying to find ways to make money here, there, and everywhere, and whilst a lot of people frown upon that kind of thing, making a starter pack where the main thing that you can get is 3 exotics that are easy to get in the game anyway, alongside giving you a bunch of glimmer, which you could probably earn within 2 hours of gameplay, and then on top of that, an enhancement core, a couple prisms, and an ascendant shard, which again, if you just grinded Nightfalls for a while, you could probably get more than that. But why they thought charging for that was such a good idea, I will never know. But veering away from that kind of thing, I'm going to talk about Season of the Wish and what's actually in it. And I know a few other creators aren't exactly excited for Season of the Wish, it just feels like another season to them, which is understandable. But to me, I think there are a few new things that Bungie has put in that I actually quite like. But I'm going to start with a big problem that's in the center of the room, which is the fact that Bungie brought us back to the Blind Well. Now, don't get me wrong, I am okay with them reusing older stuff to try and breathe life into it, but the Blind Well is probably the worst one they could have picked out the bunch. I would actually be far happier running the little side missions you can do in the Dreaming City, where you go get the bounty from Petra, then go find a Techian, and you get to do a nice little side mission. The Blind Well, on the other hand, is easily one of the most boring points of content I have played in Destiny in a very long time. There's a reason I don't grind the bounty. So I personally think Bungie should have made something brand new for when we actually go to the Dreaming City and do a couple things there. But talking of brand new, we have 2 new activities, which are basically the same activity, just slightly different. The activity is basically called Riven's Wish, and the best way to describe it is think of the first phase of Grasp of Avarice. You're pretty much there, because not only do you have to watch out for traps, there are actually quite a few bits of jumping puzzles that you have to do as well. And as you can expect, there is a boss at the end that you have to kill. After that, the mission is pretty much done, but the point of the missions is we are trying to recollect all of Riven's eggs. And all I'm going to say is if this is what brings back the Ahamkaras into Destiny 2 and we can go on a massive dragon hunt, I am all for this. As for the other activity, which is pretty much the same, just a little bit different, it is called the Coil. And I'm not going to lie, I actually really like the Coil. It seems Bungie has found a really good formula for an activity for once. Because if you have seen my previous videos on the other seasons, then you'll know that I didn't like Season of the Deep because the difficulty scaling was completely messed up. Altars of Summoning just felt really boring, and again, the difficulty wasn't really nailed either. But for the Coil, it feels like they've nailed the difficulty quite nicely. It's not exactly too tanky to take down the bosses, and if you're being very careless, you will get stomped, which is pretty much the happy medium that you need to be. When you're playing on harder activities, you need to be more mindfully positioning, and also run a good build to get through it effectively. So it's nice that I'm not getting one shot by every single enemy that comes out of a doorway. On top of that, there are actually some roguelike elements involved, which I actually am not a fan of roguelikes normally, but I do enjoy this kind of formula. So as you run through the core, you basically are able to buy perks to level up your experience, a lot like how we had with the Pressure Trials in Season of the Deep, where you could get a buff. You just buy them from Riven during each stage, and then you can go again and keep racking up score. And when you have an high enough score, you can go through some of these secret hiding doors, which I haven't managed to do yet. Needless to say, if you actually have a really high score, you will get very good rewards as you progress through it. But speaking of rewards, I am actually going to echo a sentiment from Evan, because I think he pretty much hits the nail on the head with this. There isn't really much of a desire to go for any god roll weapons nowadays. It is all about crafting weapons. So when the new weapons become craftable, we're not really interested in going for god rolls and grinding out activities anymore. We just need to grind out red borders, and when that's done, everything else is irrelevant, which to be honest isn't exactly great for activities like this. I actually think it would be beneficial for Bungie to make some weapons non-craftable that we can actually chase in activities like this, because whilst I do love crafting and it is a very good way to get some strong weapons, I really think that there should be some weapons that you can't craft that can have god rolls that can actually change the meta. But you never know, that might actually be what happens in the new dungeon, because that is coming out on Friday, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Storytelling though for the Season of the Wish, it is very boring and lackluster at the minute. I like the cutscenes where Riven actually came back. I'm actually going to point out her voice sounds like Savathun because it's really strange. A bit of a mix with Ikora as well, but more Savathun, which is making me wonder if it's actually Riven's spirit, or is it actually Savathun pulling the wool over our eyes yet again. But one thing is for certain, we need to have some better cutscenes and continuity with the story, and not random holo projectors just telling us what's going on. Hell, I'll even go for some ink art at this point, because I used to love that stuff, and it's like they never do it anymore. So just to summarize, if you're actually after a story this season, don't get your hopes up. I'd literally just wait until Into the Light comes out, because that'll have more of a story than this. But at the moment, it only has the core going for it, which makes it very lackluster, and pretty much not worth it in my eyes, which is actually very concerning considering that we're going into the final shape next and we don't have a lot of momentum at the minute. So Bungie is going to have to pull out a lot of stops with this into the light thing that they're planning, otherwise we're going to have no momentum going into the final shape and it will flop very hard. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is Destiny in the mud right now? Well, that's actually a silly question. I'll ask you a new one. Is Season of the Wish worth it to you and why? That's probably a better question. But as always, remember to leave a like and subscribe down below and I shall see you all in the next video.